Okay, so resume. So I'm going to be broadcasting from my daughter's room because this used to be the office and our modem is still here. So I can plug straight into my computer to make sure that we have the clearest recording possible. All right. And while I go through this presentation, if you have, if you have a, let me admit this person. If you have a question, feel free to just unmute and ask, because I'm afraid there's a lot going on my screen here. All right, there's the group chat, and there's people trying to get in. Because I'm new to Zoom, I don't know if there's a way I can just allow everyone who wants to come in to enter. All right, but I keep having to click on admit. And so if you are trying to type a question, I might miss that question. All right, so it just might be best for you to, if you want to say something, if you want to respond, if you want to contribute in any way, that you may unmute. And
are you going to be posting this on Blackboard?
I will be posting this on Blackboard. Yes. Okay. It's a recording on purpose to make sure that I'm able to post this. Okay. Right, so yeah. So if you have to like bail out, then you can do that. That's fine. If you can't make it through the whole thing. Okay. So. Alrighty, cool. Well, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting that when the whole school switched over to online, that we also had a break for a week. That didn't necessarily seem like as if we needed it, since we've already been doing this online. But it was nice to have, you know, a pre-spring break. Do you ever have, you know, extra time to work on your stuff? You can come in. All right, let me get to my, let's see where I can share my screen again. So that way we can go through the, oh, here we go. All right. All right, let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna go through, I'm gonna go through the essay, make sure that we clearly understand what the expectation is for the essay. And then I'm gonna go over explaining what a literary analysis essay is. And then I'm going to go over an outline that I'll post also for you to be able to use in preparing for your literary analysis essay. And I'm going to use the story Cold Mountain as, the novel Cold Mountain as my example for talking about a literary analysis, okay? So whenever I refer to Cold Mountain throughout this, that's not something that I had expected you to have read, all right? I'm just using it, okay? So the essay 3, it's essay 3 novel or play analysis, guidelines and all that kind of good stuff. We'll be working on here. It is due April 20th, which is 10 days from now. So you kind of need to get cracking on it, like right now. Here is today, Friday the 10th, all this week, and the 20th. Hopefully you're already done reading your book. You have already been looking at this. You've already been doing maybe some prep work for it. I mean, these are a lot of assumptions, all right, that I'm making. So I understand if you haven't yet. But you have about a weekend, in a weekend to get it done. All right. So let's see. This should be your longest essay, even though some of you have already written pretty long papers already. Okay. Let's go down here. This is an analytical essay. It's not a summary. All right. I'm going to go over that. Don't retell the story. assume your reader has read it, which is me. Talk about your book as if I've read it. All right. And you don't, and what I mean by that is that like you don't have to give every single little background detail when discussing a scene or two. All right. When you're discussing one chapter, you don't have to summarize everything that had happened up to that point. All right. Also, I had posted this list of books that I did not want you to do your paper on. Right? I wanted contemporary books. Like I don't want a paper on The Great Gatsby because I know that the majority of high school students had been taught The Great Gatsby, and it would be hard for you to write a paper about The Great Gatsby without using information that you'd been taught in school. Okay, and so I'm not looking for the textbook interpretation of your novel. I'm looking for your interpretation of the novel because your teacher's interpretation of the novel is cool. It might be great. I mean, I have tons of awesome interpretations of novels, right? But that's not necessarily the definitive, concrete, absolute meaning of that story. I mean, we all have different types of understandings of stories. You know, when I led y'all through interpretations throughout this semester, that was just me trying to provide you with an example of the process of decoding narratives and understanding the deeper meanings in them. But that's not necessarily, I'm not enforcing that, okay? I mean, like when I teach Catch in the Rye, I discuss my interpretation of how the main character Holden had been sexually molested. But there are plenty of teachers who do not talk about that or don't even believe that. And so I have my interpretation, they have theirs, and whatever. So with this essay, I am not going to judge you on whether your interpretation is correct or not. I'm going to judge you on, is your interpretation believable? Do you make it believable? If that's what you feel, is it believable? Okay. We are reading The Great Gatsby, for example, in my 11th grade class. And I discuss how, you know, I think Nick is totally gay and that he's living a closeted life because of the time period. And in fact, I want to, you know, the story that we read about the sea change, about the two people coming out throughout the story, right? I'm going to assign that to my 11th graders after finishing The Great Gatsby, and said pretty much this is going to be Jordan Baker and Nick once they, you know, if they had actually stayed together or tried to stay together, right? This is pretty much those two characters, all right? Which to me is not far off because Fitzgerald was really good friends with Hemingway. Fitzgerald, who wrote Great Gatsby, and Hemingway, who wrote The Sea Change. Okay, that was happening in that time period. But also, you know, the book never says Nick is gay, Jordan is gay. It's just all interpretation. All right. So you can and take your stories however you want, as long as whatever it is that you talk about is not directly stated in the book. Okay. If your male character is gay and he talks about being a homosexual in the book, you cannot provide an interpretation that he is a homosexual because it's already stated in the book. All right. So what I'm looking for in this essay is original thought, which is why I really wanted y'all to pick books that were very contemporary, very new, very much off the radar of academia, education, those kind of things, because then there's less information talked about concerning those books. Okay. I really wanted books that did not have already have interpretations written about them, because I wanted you to develop your own interpretation of these books. All right. A lot of people email me about books, which is cool and all. And so if they email me, they're like, hey, is this book okay? As long as it was fiction and I had never heard of it, that's fantastic. Way to go. Good book. All right. Any questions? If we don't say anything, I'll assume there's no questions. So your essay is analytical, okay? Analytical means that it's thoughtful. There is no absolute idea. It's not necessarily argumentative. There's an element of argumentativeness into it, argumentation in it. There's an element of persuasion because I should, but it's different also because like I don't have to, at the end of this, I don't have to be persuaded of your interpretation. I just have to see that you analyze the text and you provided what you believe is the interpretation. Because I mean, there could be books that you wrote about that I've read that you provide an interpretation and you have support for your interpretation and you have contextual support to back it up and you have other research that you apply to it. And I just might not believe it. I might be like, well, yes. I mean, I see where you're coming from. That's a great analysis. I'm gonna give you an A. I don't believe that. I'm not convinced because I'm stubborn. But that's okay though. So this is not, I don't have to be persuaded by your interpretation. I just have to believe that you actually analyzed the story and you gave it a really solid effort of trying to argue it, okay? So your essay needs to, these are your components of your essay: introduction, body, conclusion, which I'll go over all that stuff, okay, blah, 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 blah. You must cite your main source, incorporate 4. Oh, I thought I had adjusted this. I was gonna just put 3. I think you just need 3 secondary sources. It gets kind of redundant to have more because this is analytical. I really want a lot of this to be based upon your ideas. And if you can cite from 3 secondary sources, then you can cite from 4 or 5 or whatever else, okay? So we only need 3, all right? I always hated in math class when teacher gave 20 problems to fix or to solve when, if you can do 10 that and do it correctly for 10, why do you need to do 20, right? That's sort of my thought. Because I'm just testing that you're able to do this stuff in general. So I don't need more than 3. 3 is good because you could write this paper with just 3 body paragraphs if your paragraphs are long. And so that would be 1 source per paragraph. This might not be a 5-paragraph essay. This might be much for you. Depends on how long your paragraphs are. Of course, I prefer if you write longer paragraphs, the better, unless they are redundant and they go too far. All
so
right.
like you want us for like, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for like the thesis, you want us to write what the book was about, and then in the body paragraphs explain how you got to that.
All right. So I'm going to go over that with you in a moment. I'm going to go over the outline first, and then I'm going to go over the PowerPoint to kind of tell you what you can put in your body paragraphs. Okay. But yeah. But yes. That's pretty much how it's going to be. And I'm going to go over your research once I get into the outline. All right. So I'm not going to go over that right now. All right. Now, I'm trying to see here where it says how long your essay needs to be, because it needs to be about 5. It needs to be about 5 pages. All right. We do need to work on, because the idea is this, y'all. Okay. Why length of paragraphs, length of your essay is important, because, part of this course, English 1102, is not made for you to necessarily become English majors. And so many people who take this class are not English majors, right? But like, if you can write, if you can think critically and use research to write about a story, all right, then you can think critically about psychology and use research to write about psychology. You can think critically about history and use research to write about history. You can think critically about some other course that you're taking, whatever course you're taking, where you have to write an essay in. These classes, English 1101, 1102, are meant to prepare you for all of college writing, all the writing that you do in college, which is why we don't do creative writing, because only in an English course is when you would really write a poem. even though I did 1 year in college, I took statistics, and our professor at the very end of the semester allowed us to do creative writing, as a write poetry about statistics for extra credit. But that right there is an outlier. All right, all my other classes in college, I never wrote anything creative other than what was in an English course. All right, and so this class, while it's English, it's a universal class. It's a class that's supposed to be for to prepare you for all the writing that you'll be doing in all of your other classes as you pursue your college degree. All right. And so as you get, here it is. But as you get further into your courses, like the 2,000 level classes, the 3,000 level classes, and the 4,000 level classes, all right, they'll be expecting you to write more and more and more and more. Okay. So this paper is supposed to be 4 full pages, about 1,300 words. Okay, 4 full pages, like always to the bottom, and that was designed by the school. GTC designed that. So paper needs to be 4 full pages. Okay, and like I said, I think that you can do that with 5 paragraphs if you write well-developed paragraphs. Quality over quantity. Quality paragraphs over tons of paragraphs. All right, it's better to have thicker, denser paragraphs than it is to have a bunch of short, choppy ones. All right. Okay. So this is the you don't have a rough draft due. You don't have an outline due. You don't have any of that kind of stuff due. All right, just your paper. But you need to write an outline because it is the best way, and you should do this for yourself. It's kind of like you should exercise. You should try to eat right at least a couple times a week, okay? Because these things are good for you. As a student writing a paper, you should write an outline because it's the best way to organize your ideas and to stay on track. All right, I'm a big advocate of the outline writing, not because I'm an English teacher at all, but because I believe that it helps you stay on track and focused. Okay. Make sure it's in MLA formatting. We've been going over that all. If you had me last semester, we've been going over that all year. I've been enforcing that. All right. You're going to use quotations. I'm going to go over that. And you have to have 3 secondary sources. All right. And I'm going to discuss the type of sources that you need for that. Okay. All right, so look, this is the outline that I'm gonna post for y'all, and I might do an example of it as well. All right, this is the skeleton of the outline. So your introduction and your body paragraphs need to all be written in 3rd person. For the poetry essay, I said that you could write in 1st person in the first paragraph, in the last paragraph. For this paper, I want you to write 3rd person for the introduction and the body paragraphs. All right. In your introduction, you're going to begin with what is the title and author of your book. Now, you need to explain that information, but you don't have to say, my book was called Cold Mountain, and it is by Charles Frazier. You can write a nice, interesting, engaging sentence, about the book and get into the title. All right. What is the book about overall? All right. Like A and B is pretty much combined. These should be about 1 to 2 sentences, 3 sentences. All right. Don't need an in-depth. I do not need an in-depth summary of the book. Okay. But begin by explaining to me what the book is. All right. The book that was read. All right. And you don't need to say, I read the book, Cold Mountain. Okay. It can be, you can combine A and B. So it's something like the novel Cold Mountain by Charles Frazier is a Civil War retelling of Homer's The Odyssey. Okay. The main character, Inman, goes off to fight for the Confederacy, and leaves behind his love, Ada. Okay, Ada struggles to survive in this hostile and rugged country. Might change that if I was actually writing this. This is my first draft of that little line. All right. While Inman eventually deserts the war and goes on a long odyssey. Okay, because this is a retelling of the Odyssey. A long, dangerous odyssey. Oh no, not that dangerous here. There we go. Boom. All right. Back to his beloved. Okay. Or I've already said love. Back to Ada. All right. So look, that right there. Boom. The novel Cold Mountain. Which notice I italicized.
You can't see what you just typed.
What? You can't see what I just typed?
No.
All right. Hold on. Maybe it'll take a second for it to. Have you seen any of the things I've typed?
No.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. I mean, I'd feel like.
I was just waiting for the right moment.
Waiting for the right moment. It's all about the right moment. All right. Okay. Maybe I need to pause share and resume share. Now can you see this?
Not yet.
No.
It's showing the 3 secondary sources that.
Oh, is it still on the
Yeah, it's still on the bottom of the page.
Next page, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. Screen sharing is paused. Okay. I'm pausing that. I'm going to do new share. Now, do you see literary analysis outline?
No.
Oh, wait, hold on. It's paused. Now I'm going to resume share.
Okay, there it goes.
There it goes. So you see this literary
Yes.
analysis outline.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Do you see it scrolling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I cannot. Okay. Now I'm learning something while using Zoom. I have to pause and change the page and then reshare. Okay. Sorry about that, people. All right. So literary analysis outline. Okay. Well, and can you see me highlighting and all this?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to delete this for a moment. All right. So this is your outline. Let me discuss this. We have I have your introduction, body paragraph, body paragraph, body paragraph, conclusion. All right. Introduction, as I discussed before, it should be in third person. All right. I have the main things that you should state in your introduction that you should cover in it. So you should discuss the title and author of your book and what is the book about overall. And I'm going to say 1 to 3 sentences is fine. Then you need to start leading to the things you're going to cover in your essay, right? The things a thesis statement traditionally is 1 sentence. And you were taught this in high school. You might have even been taught this in middle school. A thesis statement, you have this 1 sentence at the very end of your paragraph, and boom, it tells you everything, blah, 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 blah. But it's 1 sentence. It's a statement, singular. Well, in college now that you are progressing more and more, and you're going to be moving on to your 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 level courses and stuff, your introduction is going to evolve from a thesis sentence into a thesis paragraph. All right, you won't be able to contain all of your ideas discussed in your paper in 1 statement. Okay, that's just if you did that 1 statement would be 4 or 5 lines long with a bunch of semicolons. All right, that's ridiculous, people. So you are going to be essentially taking what the topics you discussed in body paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, and if you have a 4th one, in the 4th one, and you are going to essentially reduce those to 4 main ideas and state those 4 main ideas in your introduction. Okay, so after your first little bit, which now I will post back up, all right, and you see this is what I would do when I'm filling out my, like, I'm gonna upload the blank outline to y'all, all right. If I were you, all right, I would download the outline and I would start writing my rough draft in the outline by filling out these chunks, all right. It's a really good process. And the reason why I don't necessarily do a rough draft is because there's never one set rough draft. Anybody who writes an essay, a really good one, you should be writing it in chunks as you go through. And it should be constantly evolving until it's finalized, until it's really at a place where it has turned into a beautiful, butterfly of a paper and it's ready to be turned in. So I would go through, if I were you, and just start filling this information out as you go and skip some parts. So like right now, if I'm writing about Cold Mountain, I can go ahead and begin with this where I state my title, and novels and plays are all italicized. They're not in quotation marks and they're not underlined. They're italicized. I have my title, I have my author, and then I have a basic retelling. I took 400 pages and I reduced it to 4 lines. All right. It's not super, look, of course there's gaps in here. Of course, you don't, it's not like you already read this book and so you know what it's really about, but I gave a basic synopsis of it. And that's all you need to provide. All right. I know there's many people who are going to go in and you're going to write a mini novel of your novel, just explaining what the novel is about. And I'm telling you, you do not have to do that. All right. Just a very basic teaser. All right. Of what's happening, and then get into what the book is actually about, what it's actually discussing. All right. And so here in the body paragraphs, all right, your topics, before you write, before you can do your all your introduction, you have to establish and figure out what you're going to write about. All right, what is going to be your topic of body paragraph 1? What is going to be your topic of body paragraph 2? What is the topic of body paragraph 3? All right. And so that's why we're going to go over to the PowerPoint now to discuss what you can put in your body paragraphs. All right, the types of things you can talk about. And I hope that once I go over the PowerPoint, you'll feel like, wow, like there's like 100 things I could talk about. So I only need to pick 3 of those things. All right, and it should make it hopefully pretty easy, unless you're like my wife, who doesn't like a lot of options. Giving her 100 options and telling her to pick 3 would be like a nightmare for her. Okay, so if you're like that also, sorry, email me and I'll just tell you what to write about. All right, if that will help your anxiety better. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna pause my sharing. I'm going to switch over now to the internet. I'm gonna share this, mother, and I'm gonna resume. Okay, so are we on the Essay 3 novel or play analysis page?
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. And then now, do you see this?
Yes.
Okay. We are learning. We're laughing and learning as we go through this. Fantastic. All right, so writing the literary analysis. This is, look, I put this for you up online. I mean, I know I didn't put this up for you. I found this online, gave you the link, so that way you always have access to it. All right, it's fine PowerPoint. It's very universal. All right, not much has changed since 2006, so we're just going to go through this. I'm not going to read every single page. You can go through this yourself. All right, I'm just going to highlight the important stuff. All right. In case you're confused about what a literary analysis is, it's just literally how it sounds. All right, you are analyzing the literature, meaning you are finding what's not being said, but is being implied about the literature, and then discussing it. That's all it is. You're taking things that it's kind of like, I have a friend who's going kind of crazy with the whole pandemic that's happening, and he's posting a lot on Facebook about how the government, this is a conspiracy, this is inflated, the economy is going to crash. All this very much like anti quarantine type of stuff. And when I read that, okay, I'm not convinced that this is a conspiracy or this is fake or whatever. What I see is that my friend is very scared. He has a lot of anxiety about what's happening, and he's concerned, and he doesn't know how to express it other than to put out these very negative, angry posts, and that are avoiding from him actually discussing his fear. Okay, and so I just did a literary analysis of his Facebook posts. All right, same thing with my children. They might claim to be upset with something about something, but then when I really use my analysis skills and realize they're not really upset about that, they're sad about this, something totally they're not even expressing. And if any of you are in relationships and have been in a fight with someone that you're involved in, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whatever, wife, engagee, someone you're just having a good time with, whoever, that most of the time fights revolve around something that is the complete opposite about what's being fought about. All right, people are getting upset about dishes, and it's really about this feeling of not feeling valued or not feeling respected. And you have to get below the surface to really get to the source of what is this issue about. All right, what's not being said that's actually the most important thing that should be said. All right, which is I go off on this whole thing more in my in-person classes at the colleges, that the importance of this class, whether you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a scientist, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be whatever that you're pursuing a college degree for, a welder, all right, whatever. The most important thing about this class that you learn is people skills, and you learn that nobody tells you the absolute truth that's on the surface. You have to use your analytical skills to get below the BS that they're spewing, or the protection that they're wall that they're putting up, to find out what's really at the core that's being communicated and be able to discuss it. All right, and that's the beauty of literary analysis, is that you're getting a chance to practice this, because every person you meet in real life is a book. Every person you meet is a novel that you have to read and that you have to understand and interpret and find out what's not being said. Okay. And that's what you're doing in this paper. You just read a book, and you are figuring things out that are not being said in the book. Okay. Fantastic. I'm not going to go that long on every slide. I promise. Okay. All right. So the focus of this PowerPoint is to discuss what are those things that you can talk about in your paper. All right. So one thing you can discuss in your paper is the meaning of the story. All right, themes are great. Themes are just, what can you take away from this book that you can apply to your life, or about understanding people better, or understanding a type of person better, that sort of thing. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, question.
So if you're going to discuss the meaning of the story, you pick 3 different themes to discuss.
You can. Yeah. You don't have to. You can pick one theme, or you can pick 3 different themes. Like if I was doing Cold Mountain, all right, and the thing about novels is that there's different themes, there's different messages being put out there. In Cold Mountain, I can talk about the theme that is expressed with the character Inman, is the very negative effects of war, and how long time spent fighting and killing has a degenerative effect upon people's psyches. Okay. Cold Mountain is very much an anti-war novel. And we see the main character, and I'll discuss in the whole paragraph how Inman becomes dehumanized through all of the killing that he has to do. And it's very clear in the text, and how he talks a lot about how he becomes he feels more like an animal than he does a human, and all this kind of stuff. But the theme, which is very, a very negative, like, down kind of theme. But then Ada, the theme for Ada is about how struggle and strife can make you stronger, and how in times of dire need and high stress, okay, you can actually become this much stronger and more capable person. And with Ada's, because of the war, because of all these things and all the men left and stuff, she had to like figure out how to live and survive. And she starts off as this very, very incapable, needy person. And by the end, she is completely independent, and she doesn't even need Inman anymore. And that's the great irony of that. Like by the time that he arrives back to her, she's completely self-dependent. All right. And so that's another theme. And then the third theme, and then I could come up with another theme that the book discusses, because novels have tons of themes, and every little character has his or her own theme. So yes, you can talk about 3 different themes, or you can just have one paragraph on one theme.
Okay.
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 All right. Let's see. Characters. All right. We can talk about character development with your character. Let's see. That's theme. All right. Characters. So you could discuss. You can't just summarize how a character changes. Okay. But you can discuss though. You can take a topic that is theme, but really talk about characterization. Talk about a character arc. Like, so in Cold Mountain, all right, Inman dies. All right, spoiler, he dies at the very end of the book. And I could talk about how, look, for Ada's, Inman had to die, meaning as in like as a storyteller. Inman has to die in order for Ada's character development to be purposeful. Because if Inman had lived, then all of that progress that Ada had made in her character development, in her character arc of becoming this completely dependent, useless, weak, emotional person to becoming this very solid, independent, strong woman, all right, who is surviving in a man's world all on her own, how if Inman came back, all right, they would immediately just kind of go back to their old ways, and she would just naturally kind of fall back into letting him lead and all this kind of stuff. And so, in order to make her storyline, her character arc justified and to solidify it, he has to exit the story. He cannot remain in the story. Okay, and then at the same time, we can talk about his character arc. His character arc, where this could be my another paragraph, how he has to die at the end of the story in order to preserve his character. Because right now, he is on a personal demise where he's becoming dehumanized, okay? But then he finally makes it back to Ada, and he seems happy and stuff, all right? But because his character has dissolved so much through the book and has become so separated and isolated and unable to connect, then once the honeymoon phase is over between he and Ada, now that he's back, right, all that trauma is really going to set in, and it's going to kind of ruin him as a person. And this great, nice, wonderful relationship that they have right now upon his return is going to dissolve, and it might end up becoming very violent and self-destructive and all this kind of stuff. So by him dying at the very end of the novel, it preserves their relationship, going out on a high note. All right, they have this return, they have this very nice romantic night. All right, she becomes pregnant unknowingly with his child. All right, for the future generation, they get married emotionally that night in this little ceremony they have, and he goes out saving her life. All right, he dies a hero, and it kind of goes back to that quote from a Batman movie: "It's better to die a hero than live long enough to become a villain." Right, and so for his character arc, it's better for him to go ahead and die at the end. So he dies on top, or he dies as a good person. So like that's character development, about how the character, changes throughout the story and why it's good, or how their change led them to their, you talk about if I was talking about the Great Gatsby, and about how all of the ways in which Gatsby changed from when he first met Daisy, it just led to his demise, and that it was not a good change. And that kind of his character development relates to the theme that trying to achieve wealth is an empty goal to have. All right. So that's character development. You can talk about how if a certain characters change from the beginning to end, what does that say? What purpose of that? Why did the author have the character change in that way? What's the purpose of it? All right. Theme. Okay. Conflict. You can talk about if I was writing about Catcher in the Rye. Okay, Holden's conflict, his major conflict in the whole book is, well, there's not one conflict. Well, no, there is, I guess. His major conflict is trying to avoid his parents finding out about his expulsion from school. And so, and then he has all these minor conflicts, all these little things he's getting in trouble for throughout the whole book. And that all these conflicts are meant to show his emotional distress that he's in. And that all this was caused by his sexual abuse as a child. And I could discuss that the central crisis that's at the center is actually just a deeper symbol for what's happening emotionally within the character. All right, for whatever that is. So you can use conflict. You can't just talk about what the conflict is. You can't be like, oh, this person was kidnapped, and now they're trying to find their kidnapped daughter. And in the book, they find out where the daughter's being hidden, and the cops come in, and then they kill the perpetrator. They kill the kidnapper, and then now she's saved. Like, that's a summary. All right, that's not talking about the deeper meaning behind the conflict. Okay, what is this really about? All right, like you can talk about. Did y'all ever watch Bird Box? That movie with Sandra Bullock came out last year on Netflix.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. Well, you can interpret that story as about like really the conflict of that story is how to be a parent. It's not about the crazy entities that are killing people. All right, this central conflict is about how do you parent in a crazy world? How do you make kids strong and raise them right so they're independent, yet also that you are emotionally available to them and that you provide them with humanistic relationships. Like the whole thing's a metaphor for parenting. All right, especially between like old school boomer parents and now the Gen X parents and the millennial parents, right? It's a big argument. I mean, boomers' parents were too hard on their parents, like Sandra Bullock. But then boomers criticize millennial parents as being like Sandra Bullock's black boyfriend, husband guy, who she criticizes as being too soft on the kids, right? And that he wasn't, and he was younger, which is supposed to represent the millennials. All right, so you can have this whole interpretation about really that the conflict of the story is about parenting styles and which one is the right one. So it's not summarizing the conflict; it is interpreting it. Okay, seeing what is the conflict a metaphor for? All right, what is the metaphor of the conflict? Okay, like I don't know if you know this. During the zombie craze, zombies became huge during the 2000s. And it coincided with George W. Bush, and the big rise in zombie stories, all right, and films was this idea that it was a metaphor for how people in society were just blindly going along with the government, because after 9/11 happened, people were so much in this bloodthirsty need for revenge, okay, that they became zombies. They became just, for them, brain was revenge. Revenge was brain, and they're like, revenge. And so Bush started a war with Iraq, which had really nothing, Saddam Hussein was not a good guy at all, but he had actually nothing to do with 9/11. But because people were so zombified, needing revenge, Democrats, Republicans, everyone, revenge, and they couldn't get bin Laden, they directed everybody's attention towards Iraq. And so we had the Iraq War. And we used Saddam Hussein as a scapegoat to kind of fulfill the need in people's a desire for vengeance, okay, for brains. And so all these films came out about zombies, about the mindless masses just going out and seeking this this death, all right, even though it's not in the right direction. So those are really cool. There's a lot of really cool academic articles, papers written about the zombie phases in American politics. So the conflict is just a symbol. It's a symbol for something bigger. Okay. We don't need, you know, the mountain. All right. These are just some graphic organizers that you could use to help if you want to brainstorm on your own for ideas. I mean, brainstorming, I think, is fantastic. It's very important. You should definitely brainstorm. Types of conflict. All right. You can discuss in your paper what the conflict is and how that supports character development. All right. I could talk about Inman's character development with is himself versus and I can go through, you know, is it himself versus himself, you know, not being able to deal with the stress and stuff of having to kill people, all right? Or is it him? Is that the conflict of himself versus other people leads to his demise? Whatever it is, if you read like a book like Into the Wild, and you want to discuss how person versus nature in terms of the main character, all right, you can discuss that if you want to. That could be a body paragraph. If you want to talk, if you want to analyze a character and discuss things that is deeper about the character and how, you know, you might not like, you know, realize this. Like you could talk about, there's a character who is seen as this antagonist in Cold Mountain, but there's a very important scene where you realize that he's actually a very round character. He's not, most antagonists can be seen as very flat, one-sided, but there's a scene where we get this deeper side to the main character, to the antagonist, and we realize that like he's actually very sad and hurt and alone because his child and his wife died, and now he's just taking out all of his anger on the world itself and blah 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 blah. You can discuss that if you want to in a paragraph that you wanted to. This is just another free writing, brainstorming to help you kind of figure out what you want to talk about. Once again, this goes back to characterization, talking about the underlying, what do these things reveal about the character? If your character has a speech impediment, why? What does that say? You know, Huckleberry Finn. If someone was writing a paper about Huckleberry Finn, they could talk about what is the purpose of having Huckleberry Finn talk the way he talks? Why did Mark Twain write him that way? And we can discuss that, how, look, the way he speaks is supposed to make him seem stupid. All right, he's simple. He doesn't use, he doesn't pronounce the words correctly. He doesn't use proper grammar. All right, he doesn't do any of these kind of things. All right, while we're used to a lot of characters having very nice, highly elevated speech patterns, all this kind of stuff, he does not. Well, why is that? All right, and that's because at towards the end of the story, when he makes this big decision that even though he's been told his whole life helping Black people was wrong, and that you go to hell for helping Black people, all right, he makes this ultimate decision that he realizes that, like, Jim has been the only consistent adult who's been a positive influence on his life, and that it's better to be damned to hell than to turn his back on this one person who's actually like the best person in his life. And this is like that's a very deep thought and a very hard choice to make. And so it shows that, like, even though he speaks stupid and he seems uneducated, right, he is able to read through all of society's hegemonical bullshit that everyone else seems to be brainwashed and convinced of. All right, so his thoughts and his decision at the very end is complete counter to the way that he talks and the way that he has been educated. All right, that's on purpose. Okay, so you can discuss something about characterization, something the way a character is described, its background, and why the author made that character that way. Because it's always for a reason. There's always a reason. All right. Authors don't just pull something out of their butt and be like, oh, okay. If it's a consistent and continuously discussed trademark of a character and it's relevant consistently, then it means something. There's a purpose for it. Okay, so make sure that if you catch something about that and you want to discuss what their characterization reveals about themselves, the character as a character, cool, discuss it. Setting, sometimes setting matters, sometimes setting doesn't matter. Okay, setting matters in Cold Mountain because we have these characters who are Southern, okay, but also they're not racist though. So that just makes them even better characters. They are Inman is fine deserting the war because he doesn't even believe in the war. All right, he just knows that if he didn't go to war, then he would be arrested. And also, it's important because when he leaves and deserts the war, he's constantly being hunted as a deserter. Okay, in the South, and that if he was in the North and he deserted the Northern War, then it might seem like as if he is sympathetic to slavery and the ways of the South. So he has to be a Southerner because it makes him look like to be an even more noble character, that he's not racist. Ada also she frees the black slaves that she had inherited for her property when she moved to Cold Mountain, right? She freed them all and made them employees, and then she allowed them to flee to the north, all right? And this is on purpose because it makes them look like better people. So the setting for the time period of Cold Mountain is important. It has a bigger effect on the story than just being in the woods, okay? Some stories, the setting doesn't matter. And you have to use your own analytical skills to decide, does this matter? If it does, I'm gonna talk about it. Or if it doesn't matter, and then don't talk about it. Same thing with point of view. If you feel like this matters, if you feel like there's a reason for it. Great Gatsby is written in first person because it justifies ambiguity. We are not told everything because Nick doesn't know everything. But if the book was third person and we were not told certain things, then it would be easy for us to criticize the writer and say, man, this is, Scott Fitzgerald was a crappy writer. Like he didn't, he left us out of this information that he kind of alludes to, but he doesn't show us, even though it's third person. So we should be able to see it. By having a first person, it creates more mystery, suspense, ambiguity, blah, 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 whatever. All right. So you can talk about that if you feel that the way it's told matters. All right. And if you haven't noticed, all this is about whether you feel that this aspect of the story is important to understanding the story. Foreshadowing, mood, symbolism. Symbolism, what is this? I mean, Cold Mountain, I can go through how the different characters symbolize their Odyssey counterparts. All right, how the Home Guard represents Poseidon, and how Junior represents the Cyclops, and how Sarah represents Calypso, and talk about their symbolism, if I wanted to. Okay. What do these characters represent in general?
I have a question.
Yes.
So basically, we need to figure out like which three of these elements make up the meaning to our story, and then that's what we write about.
Yes, and and they don't have to be working together to make the same meaning. All right, like I said, like you can have contradicting themes. All right. You can have a paragraph about theme, a paragraph about characterization, and you can have a a paragraph about something else. Okay.
Okay.
But yes, it's all it is about, and then like a symbolism. All right. So like if I was writing about The Great Gatsby, I could say, okay, I could write one paragraph about the theme and about how the theme is about money and wealth will not fulfill you. All right. I could write a one about symbolism, about the green light, what the green light symbolizes for Gatsby. And then I could write a third paragraph about the usage of first person and how that creates ambiguity in the storytelling. Okay, so of all these things we've been discussing, all right, you're just picking 3 or 4 because we want to make sure we have 1,300 words and at least 4 full pages. All right, if you need more,
Okay.
then use more. All right, there should be more than enough things that you can discuss in it, as long as what you are discussing has deep meaning. It can't just be like the author uses a high level vocabulary. Okay, so, right, the question "so" should always be attached to whatever it is that you want to talk about. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that. I'm going to pause share and go back to the outline, and then we'll wrap up. All right. So so you have 3 to 4 that you're going to discuss. 3 to 4 topics. All right. Your support. So you have, and like I said, I would fill this out. Body paragraph, topic 1. Okay, I'm doing Cold Mountain. All right. And so then I would do theme. I'm going to do theme, negative effects of war on Inman. All right. My claim would be something like, I'm just going to write out Inman character deteriorate. Oh, I can't spell that. Hey, I did spell it. Holy crap. Inman's character deteriorates over the course of the story, blah, 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 blah. If I was actually writing it, I would fill it out. All right, my support. Okay, so for my support, I would do, and actually I'm going to add this in your outline. All right, we have primary support and secondary. Primary is your novel. Secondary support. All right. So my primary support would be things like he becomes impotent. All right, and refers to himself as a dog. All right, and then I would get some quotes about that. All right, your primary support can be paraphrase, summary, or quotes. Secondary support. Okay, your secondary support should not be on your primary support. It should not be about your novel. Secondary support should be about the overall idea that you're discussing. All right, so my secondary support should be like an article about PTSD. Okay, my secondary support is not going to be about someone who agrees with me that Inman is becoming deteriorating from the war. All right, my article would be about PTSD and the effects of war on soldiers, and then applying that to Inman. Paragraph 2, all right, would be something like theme of for Ada. All right, theme Ada becomes stronger and resilient the more she is alone. Okay, and that's essentially my claim also. All right, And so I would have my primary support, and which is paraphrase, summary, quotes from novel, and then my secondary support. All right, you know, an article about you know, maybe a feminist article. All right, something about female strength, women's empowerment, the ability that once women detach from men, they no longer need them. Okay, something like that. All right, a feminist article. I'm not looking for someone who also wrote about Ada becoming stronger and more resilient when she's alone. Use a source that you apply to your interpretation. Okay, so your secondary sources. So we have your primary support, and then you have your secondary support. All right. Non-novel related articles you apply to your text. All right. So don't be searching up things dealing with, but like, you know, psychology today, man, psychology today has tons of stuff. Like if I was writing about Catcher in the Rye, and I'm trying to argue that Holden has been sexually molested, all right, as a kid, then I could find an article about the side effects of childhood molestation in teenagers. Okay, and I can find how these articles will discuss things like, you know, teenagers will often show signs of depression, drug and alcohol abuse, avoidance of responsibility. All right, and then I would find evidence of all those things in Holden's actions, how he gets kicked out of these private schools, and he goes to New York City, and how he's constantly trying to get alcohol, and he's constantly trying to drink, and all this kind of stuff, blah 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 blah, and how all this shows these are all side effects. So you're not finding sources that are about your book. You're finding sources that relate to your interpretation, to justify your interpretation. Does that make sense, people? Which actually,
Yeah.
I think it'll be easier. I think that kind of research is a lot easier than have to find something that's actually about your book. Especially if y'all did what I wanted you to do, which is read books that are not very common in the academic world. All right, so that's it. And then your conclusion, first person. What were your thoughts on the book and why? Was it meaningful to you? Was it not? Did it suck? Was it awful? Like, ugh, good God, that book was awful. Why? Or, you know, the book was good. The book, it was pretty good. You know, like,
So, can you use first person in the conclusion?
Yes. First person.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's okay. First person in conclusion, totally fine. Okay, save it for the conclusion. All right. Are there, let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Are there any other, are there any questions that I can answer for anybody?
Not really a question, but just as always, just make sure we do a works cited page, right? Because you didn't put that up there for people.
Oh, yeah, that's in the, yes. Yeah, make sure you always do the works cited page.
Okay.
All right, that's absolutely a part of it. I think that's, I know you can't see this, but I'm just going to double check that is on the, let's see. Yeah, it says right here. Oh, maybe it doesn't know. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure I'll edit that. Make sure that, yes, that should be a absolute. I did say you must cite, or the assignment originally has, you must have the primary source and incorporate 3 secondary sources. But I'm gonna go ahead and edit this and just make sure everyone knows, yes, you have to have the works cited page. That's a must, just because every class, all your college classes are gonna require you have to cite your sources. Like, that's just like, it's one of the most fundamental, the baseline things that you have to take away from this course is you have to write your works cited page. My greatest fear is a professor will be like, who was your English teacher? And you're like, oh, Bayer. And it's like, he didn't teach you about citing your damn sources? That would be awful. So yes, you have to have a works cited page. Works cited page. Yep, there you go. I just add that baby directly. It's implied, but we can't live on assumptions. So it's directly stated now in the assignment. Thanks for that question. Thanks for bringing that up, because I just assumed that GTC would have had that automatically included in the description. But yeah, I mean, some people, if they don't see it actually written, they're just going to assume that they don't need to do it. What else? All right. If there are no more questions, okay, then we'll be done. I'm going to, once this video becomes available to me to finish downloading or whatever, I will put it back up onto the on eClass, not eClass, on Blackboard. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that wraps us up. So once everyone's logged off, then I will know that the session is officially over, and then I'll log off.